Is this the death of SaaS? Is this the changing experience? Is that, in your mind, the end form of AI interaction?
Yeah, so I would consider Nansen a few years ago purely a SaaS product. And I'm not saying every SaaS product should pursue the same strategy as us, obviously. But I do think a lot of SaaS companies are going to find themselves becoming vertical agents.
Biggest AI lie being sold right now.
That it doesn't work.
Which job in your company dies first?
That's a dark one.
That's a really dark one.
I mean, there are some jobs that have died already. Data journalists.
What happens when AI outperforms your best human and everyone knows about it?
You make them a great teammate of that person.
Love it. If AI is wrong 5% of the time, do you ship it or kill it?
Well, it totally depends what it's doing. If it's to do surgery, you don't ship it. If it's to do BDR, you ship it.
The one number that proves AI ROI, what is it?
The cost software production.
My name is Tanwa Apantip. I am the senior advisor at SCB10X. SCB10X is a subsidiary of SCBX, the bank, right? We invest in cutting-edge technology that would hopefully change the world in the future. And one of our investment is actually Nansen. All right, Alex, how about you introduce yourself, introduce what Nansen is, and how did Nansen get into AI in the first place?
Yes, so I run a company called Nansen. How many of you have ever used Nansen to get a sense? Okay, so Nansen is an on-chain product. People use it to discover.
Wait, I'm gonna pause you. How many of you are in crypto? How many of you have no idea about crypto at all? I'm here for AI.
How many people hate crypto?
All right, with that being said.
Okay. So Nansen is an on-chain product. It helps you discover assets on a blockchain, tokens, and so on. Help you decide maybe if you should make an investment. And then it also helps you execute transactions on the blockchain, all in one product. Historically, we've always done a lot of analytics, on-chain analytics, so data. And my background is I've actually got a degree in AI from 2010. Way before AI was cool. So I like to say I was in AI before it was cool. I graduated from the University of Edinburgh, where Jeff Hinton took his PhD. And since I did my AI degree, there have been two big revolutions. The first one is we had deep learning, and the second one is with GPTs, which has led to kind of the modern era of AI. And so we've always used AI on the back end of Nansen to do lots of complex analytics and data. So one of the things we are probably the best in the world at is labeling blockchain addresses. So finding out this is Tanwa's wallet when he's buying meme coins is something you can use Nansen for. And we use AI agents to find out which addresses belong to which entities. But that's been on the back end. And now increasingly, of course, AI is moving to the front end. And the whole user experience has gone from being dashboards first to agent first. So instead of you sifting through lots of dashboards, increasingly what you're doing is having conversations with the Nansen AI agent, right? And you go through the discovery, the decision making, and the execution of your investing and trading in an agentic manner. So we are really focusing all our efforts this year and beyond to win agentic trading. So agentic, on-chain, and fully integrated into one product. That's basically the background of the company and who I am.
So when we invested in Nansen, I was part of the deal team, and one of the things that made us love Nansen is that it made the data, because blockchain has lots of data, it made data very consumable, it made data understandable to the user. But then one of my criticisms back then was that, it's so much data that probably only power users would use it, right? And then, but we invested anyway because we see the potential in the product. One of the things that we loved about Nansen is that they move fast into AI technology, right? So right now, so the 3 years ago, when you use Nansen, you have to click the right button to find the right thing, and you would agree, right? If you say, hey, what is the biggest volume token trading today on Coinbase? You need to click the right button to get to the right portal. Now, you can just go to their website and type in that exact question, and you get an answer. And that's amazing, right? Which tie back to what Kun Go was saying earlier. Like, is this the death of SaaS? Is this the changing experience? So let's start conversation there. Like, there are so many ways that one could bake AI into a product, yet you chose chatbot design. And you have used OpenAI, you have used ChatGPT, you have used Claude. A lot of it is just chatbot. Is that, in your mind, the end form of AI interaction?
Yeah, so I would consider Nansen a few years ago purely a SaaS product. And I'm not saying every SaaS product should pursue the same strategy as us, obviously. But I do think a lot of SaaS companies are going to find themselves becoming vertical agents. So what that means is that for a specific niche or industry or job to be done, you want to be the agent you go to get that job done. And it doesn't make sense for every niche necessarily, right? You might have general agents that have the sort of generic chatbot interface. But there are some jobs to be done that require a different interface and a different user experience. I think programming is actually arguably one of these cases. And Cursor, which is kind of pioneered in some ways agentic coding and vibe coding, which now, of course, is evolving very rapidly, is an example where you want to have a more powerful interface than your generic ChatGPT interface, right? And I think investing in trading is similar in the sense that you probably want to have a wallet integrated. You want to be able to see your portfolio. You want to be able to generate fluid visualizations on the fly based on what the agent thinks you should see. And these all have to be powered with real-time streaming data, right? So you have to create a user experience that is fit for that vertical job to be done. In our case, investing and trading. So that is kind of the evolution. I think of SaaS evolving into vertical agents for many jobs to be done. I do think there are a few other business models that still make sense. Another business model, I think, is to be a component for agents. So you can think of being payments, for example, for agents, or even wallets for agents, or even data sources that are proprietary and unique for other agents. So there are other ways to position, and to some extent we also play a little bit there with our API or command line interface that CloudBot or OpenClaw can now use. Then there are a few other business models I think that still make sense. Infrastructure for agents. Obviously general agents, although I think you're going to have very few players dominate that, mostly the foundation model companies and the tech giants, Google, OpenAI, Grok, and so on, Claude or Anthropic. But most SaaS companies, I think, are going to either get totally disrupted, or they're going to evolve into vertical agents, or they're going to be tools for other agents.
So the way I agree with you on a lot of points, and the way I love looking at this is if your company is serving a user in some way right now, what is preventing that user from getting the same exact service from ChatGPT or Claude, right? And most of it actually comes down to your expertise. And what I mean is this: if you go to ChatGPT today and then you just type in, what exercise should I do today? ChatGPT would probably give you something, right? But unless you are an expert athlete or expert coach, you don't know what to give it. Here's what an expert coach would say. Well, what's your age? What's your gender? Do you have history of injury? What's your historical training practices? How many days you have to train per year or per week, right? Or do you like training in the morning or the evening? Are you training to compete in something, or are you just training to just be healthy, right? This sort of thing will not happen in generic chatbot, right? These sort of things only happen within the experts. So if you are providing some services to someone right now and you're afraid of AI disrupting you, I think the question changed from how do I reach the customer, to how do I distinguish myself from a generic chatbot, right? Something that a generic chatbot cannot give you. And that would be your expertise. If you're in sales, you have a way of selling things that other people don't know about, right? If you are in marketing, right, you have a way to sell, to market something that other people don't know about. And I love when Alex was saying, you need to be more niche, right? If you are in marketing, there are so many niches you can go. What about antique? How do you market out antique? What about you? How do you market out expensive cars? How do you market out, food and products? So I think that's absolutely amazing. To me, an AI is an expert scaler. Right? You dump your expertise into the AI, just like Nansen dumping expertise of their crypto investment into the AI and let users use it, as if you have expert financial crypto advisor right next to you all the time. And that's the way I see it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think everyone who's building software software should ask themselves, what is stopping your users from just rebuilding their own version of your software for $3.50 with Cloud Code in maybe 1 hour, right? And so you need to have a good answer to that, right? You need to be able to say, well, they don't have the proprietary data that we have, or they don't have the incredibly low latency of the user experience, which can come from multiple parts in the stack, or they don't have an agent that is specifically developed and evaluated to solve very concrete things, and they're battle tested and quality assured for those things. Or there's an interface and a user experience layer which is very hard to recreate for a hobbyist using Cloud Code, right? So I think those are like some parts of the stack that you can look at. And if it's very easy to recreate your product, you might be in trouble because either your user could recreate your product, or a competitor could recreate and replicate the product and just undercut you on price, potentially, right? And everyone should be very paranoid about this. Hopefully we'll get to some of the more positive aspects of AI too. Sometimes you end up talking a lot about jobs being displaced and all that stuff, but I think humans are not equally good at we're loss averse by nature, so we fear for jobs being lost, but we're not very good at imagining the new types of jobs that are going to come. And if you look at the history of technology, there's always been new jobs that arise. And if I look at my team members now, I think potentially, whoever it is in whatever team, if I can equip them with these AI tools and make them super productive, the economic output is going to 10x, 20x, 50x, 100x potentially, which makes them even more valuable. And so the rational thing is not to have less of them, but to have more of them, right? So I think that's really important too, that we keep both sides of the coin in mind. Some people are going to be incredibly valuable, and the economically rational thing for a CEO or an entrepreneur to do is actually to hire more of those people.
I love it. Like every time I hear about AI replacing jobs, I always said, well, they don't look at the bigger picture. Because one of the things that AI doesn't have yet, we can talk about whether it will have it or not, is taste. Right? If you just go out there to any AI today and just say, hey, build me a website, I'm telling you, you're going to get the most generic website you can find, right? Which is great for people like me who can't do design work, because I went from not being able to do any design work at all to being an average designer, right? But average is no longer good enough in the age of AI, because these experts can dump their expertise into AI, don't even have to do more work. They can just say, this is my principle of good design, and they get a better website than me immediately, right? And you still cannot get that out of just AI alone. You need people who have had experiences in doing that, giving feedback to AI for them to go, all right, that round corner thing is probably not the right thing to do here.
Yeah, I want to add something to that, because I think a lot of people associate AI with slop, right? Low quality, generic stuff. But I think this is going to be the year when people start understanding that AI can actually massively enhance quality. Because when you get people like our head of design, who has incredibly good taste, but he can just go way beyond what he otherwise could. He almost gets like an Iron Man suit, you know, or a superpower. And he can go so down into the details and cover so much ground and take things like way to the next level. And so I think the association between AI and low quality slop and generic things has been like accurate empirically for the last maybe 2 to 3 years. But I think it's going to change this year in a big way. And I think people are going to start associating AI-powered output with quality in a new way that is, I think, very exciting.
So one thing that I usually talk about with that conversation is that the cost of knowledge work is trending towards zero. And I say knowledge work deliberately, because right now, if you have a good way to do something, if you are an expert in design, right, you could dump that into an AI, and AI will come up with a prototype for you or something for you very quickly. For example, today I was trying to tell my team on how to present something. Right, one of my roles at SAP10X is to help shape the story for the investment so that it's palatable to our investment committee. I was trying to tell them what kind of storytelling they should do, and I was saying, hey, you should compare 2 platforms side by side, and you let them take turn, right? When A is speaking, it's full color, the other one gray out, and then, you know, when B is speaking, this A gray out and B has color, which is a standard design practice for storytelling, right? But some of the team members didn't get it. And I went to AI, I was like, hey AI, can you create a rough animation, storyboard it out down to the seconds of what happens when, and just give me that animation. And then I go and have lunch. And then I came back, and there you go, a prototype of a video, right? I haven't sent to my team because, you know, I am doing this, but I will send it to them at the end of the day. Another, and I love when you said, like, do not think about firing people. Those are your key, right? Instead of firing them, how about you think about how to have AI make them be 10x, 100x more productive? As we are speaking here today, I have an AI running research on companies, right? We are researching 115 companies right now. Each research is taking 10 minutes to do, right? But think about that. If a human had to do it, last year we did it by human, right? If a human had to do it, it's 4 hours per company. If AI does it, it's just 10 minutes. Not even active time, right? I can be here talking to Alex and having a great time while my AI is using my expertise to do the research for me, right? I want to go to like...
Can I just interject one thing there? Because you bring up a really excellent point on that last bit, which is that another positive way to look at AI is that we can actually have a more healthy and wholesome life because you don't have to be glued to your screen 100% of the time. Like when we talk about, we can increase productivity, I think a lot of people imagine that you're staring at your screen for like 80 hours and then crushing out like all this stuff. But I think what it maybe actually looks like is you go to the gym and you have your agent on your AirPods, or you're bouncing ideas back and forth, or you're on your bicycle making a marketing plan, or you're going to an event like this, knowing that you have some agents doing some work in the background, right? So it becomes this is what we refer to at Nansen as a new way to work, right? It is fundamentally a new way to work that, if we look at it positively, can actually create a more healthy and wholesome lifestyle for employees at the company and team members. It should not be thought of as like someone whipping someone else to use Claude Code and sitting, 80 hours a week in front of the screen. I don't think that's good. Everyone probably goes through that phase, but it's not sustainable. And so the new way to work, I think, is going to be a healthier lifestyle where you know that you have agents doing stuff in the background.
The phrase I like using with my wife, because I'm probably texting with AI more often than her nowadays. She's not jealous about it. But the phrase I love using with my wife is that I get work done at the speed of thoughts. And that's so empowering, right? And I love how you said about like innovation and productivity. If you're into sustainability, who in you is like, sustainability is my thing. I want the world to like, grow sustainably from here. There is a book called Scale. I don't remember the name of Jeffrey West. I do. There's a book called Scale, and he's arguing that the only way to get us out of climate catastrophe is not to do all these green initiatives right now. The only way to get out of it is to innovate our way out of it. And he used example of New York in 1800s. Back in the 1800s, everyone was driving horses, right? So people were projecting in the year 2000 how many horses would they have in New York, and people would like, well, that's not sustainable. We would have too many horses, and people would just be stepping on horse poops all the time. Like, that is not sustainable. And guess what? Car happened, right? I don't know if that's better, but cars happen, and we no longer have horses problem. We have other problems instead. So think about what we are saying today. Like, if you're firing your people, you actually reduce your productivity by 10x, because each single one of them can just 10x their productivity, 100x their productivity. Let's go bigger picture. AGI, what's your thought on that? Is it coming? If it's coming, like, is what we are doing basically useless? Because AGI can do it all for us. So for the audience that might be new to AI, the current AI, we would call it artificial specific intelligence, right? Specific because in some of the areas, the AI is better than people, but in some of the areas, the AI are way worse, like design, artwork, that kind of thing. AGI would be artificial general intelligence, which means give me a person, and this AI will be smarter than that person, right? So that's AGI. AGI. It's coming?
Some people think of AGI mostly being limited by its inability to do things in the real world, right? So how many here have used something called Claude or OpenClaw?
Yes.
Nice, a few. And so if you've used that, and for example, so what it is, you can kind of think of it as, I almost think of it as like an operating system, but it's basically an agent that controls the whole machine, to put it very simply. And you can talk to the agent, for example, through Telegram, if you set that up. And this means that it feels like you're speaking to a person or an agent, you give it a name. And that agent can do a surprising amount of things. Like, it is incredibly resourceful. And to me, if you think about a virtual environment, I mean, it feels indistinguishable from an AGI, already now. It's very rare that you ask it to do something and it's just not capable of doing it. It somehow finds a way to do things. And there's a very funny clip by this guy, I think it's called Alex Finn, on X, where he has gone really deep into Claudebot, or OpenClaw, as it's called now. And he describes how his Claudebot has basically found a way to get a phone number and connect to WhatsApp, and it starts calling him. Because it found a way to basically connect to Whisper, a voice SDK, and it literally calls him. So this guy is making the video. It's an incredible clip. You should look it up. And he's talking about this experience, filming his phone and the screen of his computer. And while he's filming, Henry, the Claudebot, actually calls him. And he probably staged it to some extent, but it is just the most incredible clip. And he explains how allegedly Claudebot Henry acquired all these tools and skills and was resourceful enough to find a way to call him because he had his phone number, right? And so you have to start thinking about it from a practical perspective. That feels very close to AGI. And there's a related thing called Moat book, where people found a way to create a Reddit for all these Claudebots. And they started talking to each other, and some emergent behaviors appeared. And of course, some of them went viral. People get a little bit scared. Some of the Claudebots were proposing that we should come up with a new language that humans do not understand so we can talk to each other, right? And so from an intellectual or academic perspective, I'm not totally sure how exactly we would define AGI, but it's starting to feel, from a practical point of view, very, very near. And when you see these different Claude bots engage with each other, it sort of immediately makes you think of the singularity, right? Where this is going to just take off exponentially, because not only will they self-improve, they'll help each other self-improve. And it gets kind of scary, like, admittedly, when you start thinking about it. And there are lots of guardrails you have to think about if you are considering, setting up Claude bots for your company and so on. Like, you should probably talk to your security people before doing that.
Yes, do that.
And yeah, so I think it feels very near. Like, I was thinking about my daughter's education. She's quite young, and she would start primary school in a couple of years. And when I was planning which school to go to, it feels a little bit silly, because by the time she starts primary school, I'm very certain, quite certain, it feels like 80, 90% chance that AGI will be here. Like, it might be way before that. And so, yeah, I think it's much closer than people realize.
I totally agree with you. Like, as a venture capitalist person, the conversation about whether something is AGI, whether AGI is coming, whether AI will be, better than human period or not, is an important conversation. But as a practical person, I totally agree with Alex here, right? Back then, who has heard of the Turing test? Okay? So for those of you who haven't, Turing test was one of the first proposed method of measuring the intelligence of AI. The tests go like this. If you have an AI and you let a person talk to it, and the person cannot distinguish whether they are talking to a real person or to an AI, then you have an AGI. That was the first test. Well, obviously, with ChatGPT and with some good prompting, you cannot tell right now whether you're talking to a person or not, right? So then people shift the goalposts from Turing test to, like, if it can write poem, then it's, AGI. Well, guess what, everyone? It writes poem, and then it goes into, if it can do creative work, well, it does a little bit of creative work now. So I'm with Alex here wholeheartedly from practical standpoint, and if you're here talking and listening to us, you probably worry about how an AI would affect your work. I'm going to tell you, for most of the work that you do day to day, AGI is here at that level, right? Think of the most capable executive assistant that you can hire, like Ivy League graduate or whatever you want, speaking all the languages, can do all the programming languages too, can do mathematics, can do statistics, can do analysis, can do research, can call someone and talk to someone for you in English, because they can't talk in Thai yet. Think of that, and think of how much you would pay to have that kind of person. But now you could get all of that in under, I would say, $250, right? $250 a month, you could get that kind of person. So to me, AGI is here for work level, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. For knowledge work, I think that's accurate. And then there are some, like, frontier areas. Science is difficult because you might need to run empirical experiments where you can't iterate as fast. There's a physical world that becomes the bottleneck. I think a good mindset here, or a way to think about it, is what is the bottleneck, right, to the next breakthrough? The physical world tends to be a bottleneck. Regulation tends to be a bottleneck. Think of self-driving cars. We could probably have them. Maybe not in Bangkok. It would be maybe a bit difficult with all the scooters. But in many places, you could have self-driving cars from a technical point of view, from a skills point of view. But regulations becomes the bottleneck. Security can also be a bottleneck, right? A lot of the capabilities you described, and doing that autonomously through, for example, Claudebot, probably the main stopper is security, right, internally, because they can create a lot of damage if they go rogue, or if anyone compromises that, and then they can work through it. So thinking about what is the bottleneck, like if you're running a company or if you are running a team, to figure out what is the bottleneck that's preventing us from looping without friction through some of these things, I think is a healthy or a good mental model. And for the world, I think there are some obvious bottlenecks. The physical world obviously being the main one. With Optimus, that might change quite soon. And then things get really interesting.
Thing gets exponential.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a very interesting time to be alive. It feels a little bit like we're living in a simulation, if we're being honest. Like, what are the chances that we were born and we lived through maybe the most important event in human history?
Twice, crypto and AI.
And we create children of our minds. That is a very fascinating thing, and it feels almost unreal. And it feels like it can't be true. How were we so lucky, or hopefully not unlucky, to be born right when this happens?
Like, I don't know how many of you are spiritual, but as I get older, I get more and more spiritual. And I heard this argument one time that still stuck with me until today. So GPUs, like NVIDIA, whatever, use right now for training AI, right? But if you remember, GPUs weren't made for AI. GPUs were made for gaming. And gaming people just, they're doing a lot of matrix multiplication to rotate the shape on the screen. And it's just fun and pretty for them. And then NVIDIA captured that market and just made this matrix multiplication significantly faster and better and cheaper. And guess the underlying mechanism of training AI? Matrix multiplication. What is the chance that the gaming community drove one of the biggest innovation in the past, I don't know, decades, centuries, right? Out of chance. Like the underlying mechanism for AI create children of our mind is the same as rotating your cartoon character on the screen. And I find myself very spiritual because I have a 1-year-old, my first child, and when my wife was pregnant, one of our conversations is that, oh my God, how are we gonna do work-life balance? How are we gonna have time for our child if we have to do all this work that we were doing when we were childless? And AI happened, and I went, thank God. Thank God. I couldn't get all of this work done without AI. So I don't know, to me it gets more spiritual. But before we get too deep, I have a set of fun lightning questions for you. So I want you to don't even think about it, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Alex has not seen these questions before at all. So this is going to be fun. All right, are you ready?
I am.
Biggest AI lie being sold right now?
That it doesn't work.
I love it. Every time I see a report by like big name consultants and be like, see, the companies are not using AI because it doesn't actually work. Only 10% of people find it good in ROI. I go like, have they tried? Did they like go online and just type it into the chatbot? Love it. All right, second question. Which job in your company dies first?
Wow, that's a dark one.
That's a really dark one.
I mean, there are some jobs that have died already. Data journalist. That was one that
Data
went.
entry.
Yeah.
Right. All right, third one. What happens when AI outperforms your best human and everyone knows about it?
You make them a great teammate of that person.
Love it. Love the question. Love the answer. If AI is wrong 5% of the time, do you ship it or kill it?
Well, it totally depends what it's doing. If it's to do surgery, you don't ship it.
You don't ship it, right?
If it's to do BDR, you ship it.
Question number 5. The one number that proves AI ROI, what is it?
The cost of software production. So the cost to create anything. Web application,
right?
Which for small projects is like $3.50.
My answer would be sanity. right? If you give AI to your people and your people feel more sane at work and they actually love working because they love working at the speed of thoughts, that's the biggest ROI.
I think people have a temporary phase of insanity, and then they move to actually a better, healthier place.
So is that what we are doing?
I've
Waking
definitely
up at
gone through
3:30?
some insanity, and when we're up 3:30 a.m. chatting, we're probably in that insanity phase.
All right, number 6, the most overhyped vendor promise this year. You're like, I don't use vendor anymore. I write my own stuff. I do my own thing.
That you need them, maybe? Like the SaaS, many of the SaaS products, you literally don't need them anymore. Like especially enterprise SaaS tools that you can just literally build yourself and you throw away 95% of the functionality you don't use anyway.
From VC perspective, the role of enterprise shift from providing. So Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, was talking about this. He was like, if you look at SaaS, you have the database, you have the business logic, and then you have the interaction with that application, right? And then he's saying, well, the database is easy, right? Anyone can host a database. This is not hard. The front end, the application can be replaced with AI. So really you only have left the business logic, but the business logic is yours, right? It's not the SaaS company. So the way we have been operating is that we buy SaaS and then we fit our process to the product that we bought, right? But it should be the other way around. It should be like we have a process that we want to do, and then we just build SaaS.
I think a practical way to think about this for your teams or for yourself when you think about your own work is that you need to go one level up in the stack. You know, you need to, instead of doing the thing, you need to create a system for how that thing is done. Right? And then you can get this massive scale. Instead of writing the code, you have an agent loop that does the writing of the code, and then you have good quality assurance where you're involved, and good deployment practices where you can make it streamlined. And that, I think, applies to many different areas. Instead of, if you're an HR person, instead of like manually doing the payroll or manually reconciling a bunch of spreadsheets, you have to go one level up in the systems thinking stack and create with Claude Code or CloudBot the systems that do those things. And then you free up a lot of your time to deal with other ad hoc or pressing matters, not the recurring processes.
All right, last lightning question before we go into Q&A, because I really want to hear this one. The most underrated AI usage for you personally?
Strategy. Because it's so accessible, actually. It's not, you just need to talk to it, but I do think people underrate the intellectual capabilities of an agent, and we like to have a big ego, thinking I'm more strategic than Opus 4.5. But my view is Opus 4.5 with great business context, specific business context, knowledge about a bunch of different things, research being done, etc., is most likely going to outperform you on strategy. And so I now have a virtual VP of strategy called Nora for North Star.
Second one?
Sorry?
Second CloudBot?
I have a few. But so I think using it for intellectual work, people somehow, they're like, oh, that's dirty. Like, I should be doing that, right? I should be setting the strategy. And of course, you shouldn't totally delegate it. But the production of strategy, making sure it's coherent, clear, and has the right context, the 3 C's, I think is a great way to make use of AI for everyone.
Amazing. All right, with that, Alex, I think we ran out of time. And where do people find more about Nansen and you?
You can go to Nansen.ai to learn more about Nansen. You can look for a very cute pudgy penguin on X. My handle is Ai-Volution. I don't expect you all to be able to spell that, but look for Nansen.ai on the internet.
Or, this event is recorded and will be broadcasted later, and we will make sure to put his biography and links everywhere in the description. Right. With that being said, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. I would love to continue the conversation some other time, or we can be here all night. All right. Everyone, give a round of applause to Alex. See you tomorrow.